All right. So we are looking at chapter 3 today of the Senior Fitness Manual. So chapter 3, this is the psychosocial well-being. So we're looking at this are the psychosocial considerations here. So if you open up that Senior Fitness Manual, which I just realized, I think I may have made it available on Canvas, but I'm not sure I sent it to you guys separately yesterday. I'm gonna have to send this out separately as an ONI. You're gonna get 2 emails today. One that is literally just the manual. But this is going to be scrolling down, looking at the psychosocial considerations, right? So we are going to be looking at. You will notice some of these are this looks really similar to a chart that we saw in our youth class, right? We looked at like what quality of life is, because that's at the end of the day, like what our job is as trainers, right? Our job is to improve overall quality of life. Like, let's say you get somebody who has, they're coming back from an ACL injury, right? The reason they are hiring a trainer is because they are trying to get their knee rehabilitated so they can get back to living their normal life, right? That is a quality of life reason that they are hiring someone, you know? Their quality of life is tied to the performance of their knee. So by improving their knee, you're improving their quality of life, right? That's the only thing we really do as trainers is improve quality of life. Let's look at some totally different situation. Let's say you've got a client who is morbidly obese and they come to like lose a lot of weight. They're trying to lose a lot of weight so that they can feel better, they can look better, they can perform better, live longer and healthier, right? All of those things are going to improve their overall quality of life. Let's look at a very different situation. Let's look at like a straight up bodybuilder who hires you to prepare for like a bodybuilding competition, right? Well, even somebody like that, and they're like, look, I want you to train me so that I win this competition because I'm trying to get up on stage and win a contest, right? That is a totally different goal than someone who is like trying to improve their health, right? One is like somebody who's trying to live longer, and one is somebody trying to win a contest. But at the end of the day, if you boil both of those things down, again, they are improving their quality of life, right? They are going to psychologically feel better by, winning this contest. Physically, they're going to feel better, which is coming, and being part of it. Socially, like they're going to make friends, competing and things like that. And then like there is like emotional well-being there, which is like, gaining sort of acceptance for that. So, that's a really big thing that we are looking at here. We're the sort of message of today's lesson is like our main job is to improve quality of life. And it was the same thing when we were working with youths as it is when we're working with seniors. It's the same sort of 4 aspects here. So some of this is going to look pretty darn familiar to you guys. So introduction, remember your body and your mind are not separate. Your body influences your mind influences your body, right? It encompasses both psychological, emotional, and social well-being, which social is sort of like, it's a little bit meta, but it's still part of the mind, right? How you see yourself fitting in with social circles. A lot of times the reason older adults pursue new fitness programs are often just to improve these psychological and psychosocial aspects, right? One thing that you're going to see that's very common, and we're going to talk about this towards the end of this lecture, is like a lot of senior clients, they went to a job for years and years and years. Now they have all this free time on their hands. And, one of the things that they can do to fill that time is like engage in like a fitness program. And that's why like group exercise is so popular amongst seniors. We see that is a very, very common thing. So today what we want to do is we want to understand how health and fitness can influence that quality of life, how to effectively motivate our senior clients, and explain the steps it takes to help them achieve even more, right? To become like higher achievers. So we are going to look at 2 things here. There are a couple of different things. We do know that like self-perception is one. We're going to see self-perception. They're kind of mentioning it here. I remember this last time I did this lecture. It's kind of a weird order. We're going to mention it and define it here, but then we're going to come down to what makes up it, self-perception down here in just a second. So self-perception, is how an individual perceives themselves. So that's its definition, right? Which can have a very, very large impact on your quality of life. If you see yourself as not very valuable, that is definitely something that can lead to like a decrease in your quality of life. Seeing like your own, like, if you feel that you are not a very valuable person, it's going to be very hard for you to take ownership over like things that you want, right? And then we also see like if you do not see yourself as very effective or successful at like achieving what you want, that's another like part of how you see yourself, right? And those are sort of the two main ways that we see ourselves. We either see ourselves as valuable and effective, or not in either of those categories. And so as we get older, that perception is sort of going to change. And so we'll look a little bit more at that in just a second. But one of the other things that we are going to also spend a lot of time talking about, again, is quality of life, right? And your emotional well-being. So quality of life is going to consist of these sort of four main things here. One is the emotional well-being, right? That is the physical and psychosocial changes that we experience as older adults, right? And so obviously, as we get older, physically, the body is going to change in a lot of ways, like we talked about yesterday, right? And when that happens, that can sometimes lead to feeling like negative emotions or positive emotions as well. But I think a lot of times, like, the reason we get hired is oftentimes we are trying to sort of combat those negative emotions. And so we'll sometimes see that when it comes to like as we get older, you start complaining more about little aches and pains and things like that. And so when we know that, again, going back to like the mind and the body are not separate, right? If we can make the body feel better, that's going to lead to an overall like improved quality of the mind. Like, we were just actually we were talking about before we started the call today how like I was having back pain recently. Man, when I get like that, like when I have like something go wrong with my back, or when I have like some type of injury or something, I clean my room less, I sleep in more, I lounge around more. I tend to be kind of negative. I don't go outside as much. Like all of those things that lead to you being like a more healthy and effective person, all of that gets a little bit worse for me. I spend more time on my phone. I spend less time, working on things that I want to work on and being productive. I don't eat as well. And it's funny because like all that stuff's going to make you feel even worse, right? And that's sort of like what we see. Like, so again, like the mind and the body being like linked there. And so if we see like physical changes that we experience as we get older, sometimes that might demotivate your client, right? And then psychosocially as well, like as we get older, psychologically, if we feel like we have like more time in the day, you're not seeing, if you stop working all of a sudden, you're not seeing the same group of people anymore. God dang it. My cereal is like in the back of my throat. So we start to experience like some changes there as well. And so that can definitely lead to like feelings of like changes in feelings of self-worth. There's a really good, it's so funny. This is like a really early in the series, like I think it's like a season 1 Family Guy episode. This is so weird. It's such a weird sort of connection here, but I think it highlights actually sometimes what senior clients actually experience. I think it highlights it really well, where like Peter's dad retires and they're all excited for him, and they give him like a big party, and he's really grumpy about it, and he's just like, I want to go back to work, I'm better than all you guys. And then like at one point he goes to see Peter at his job, and like he's like, you're a terrible worker, and he does all of his work for him like in a minute. So then he gets hired and he's super happy again. And so like it turns out like he really missed like going to work every day, and that's something that's like definitely clients that I've worked with, they've talked about. And so there can be like some psychosocial changes there that can sometimes lead to negative emotions. We know that physically is another one. Physical is how a person individually physically feels, right? Again, aches and pains that can lead to, negative feelings and things like that. Psychologically, how an individual thinks, that can sometimes lead to negative thoughts. Negative thoughts often lead to more negative thoughts. They sort of create that feedback loop that we talk about. And then that support system, right? That social support system that we see is decreased because you're not running in the same circles of people anymore. So these are sort of like some of the things that we see as part of like our emotional well-being and when we are trying to improve someone's quality of life, right? Now, going back to self-perception, like I said, this is kind of a weird order here. Self-perception, it's going to consist of your self-efficacy and your self-esteem. I would say these are two that you actually like, don't get me wrong, pay attention to the whole PowerPoint. But I'd say this is the one that actually has shown up in your regular textbook. So I would definitely pay attention to that. Yeah, these are definitely the ones that are big here. So, self-efficacy, right? Self-efficacy is a person's confidence in their ability to accomplish certain tasks. So it is how someone sees themselves as effective or not, right? Or efficient or not. Like if like me, I'm not so great a basketball player, people are like, you're tall, you must play basketball. It's like, nah, I did it in middle school and then I didn't play in high school, so I'm awful and I don't play that many pickup games very often. Whenever I do, I spend the whole time like running around passing. So my confidence in shooting a basketball, pretty low. I do not see myself as having a high level of self-efficacy when it comes to shooting a basketball, right? My confidence in accomplishing that task is fairly low. But it's not always like small tasks like that. It's not always just like really tiny, like, can you put this golf ball into a hole, or, can you do a squat or anything like that? It's also sometimes like the large, right? Like, do you have the belief that you can accomplish your weight loss goals? Do you have the belief that you can accomplish your strength goals? Do you have the belief that you can accomplish financial goals, like life goals, whatever those goals are? That's also part of your self-efficacy. So it's much larger than just, these tiny little tasks. A lot of times that's kind of the easiest way to explain it to someone, is just be like, your efficacy is your belief. I want you to do these walking lunges. And they're like, all the way down to that side of the gym, I can't lunge that far. My legs are going to get tired. It's like, well, we're going to do it, and you're just going to build up their confidence and make them believe, right? That's like a small version of helping someone develop their self-efficacy. But the more often you develop those little tiny pieces of efficacy, right? And it's like, you did it. You got all the way to across the gym. And they're like, I did do it. That's awesome. And it's like, all right, let's get on the treadmill. We're going to put you on an 8.0. And they're like, 8.0, I can't run that fast. It's like, oh, I'll bet you can, right? And then we put it up there and all of a sudden they accomplish it, right? Those little small ones, those little tiny victories lead to large victories, This is one of the reasons. Here's a little question. Robert, Irene, do either of you guys ever create like to-do lists and then cross them off as you're doing them?
Yeah, to do, and then also like grocery list, that could be also part of it, right?
Yeah, so like that's about as small as it gets, right? Like a grocery list. That's like the smallest piece of accomplishment. The smallest piece of accomplishment you can really think of, right? Did you put the thing on your list into your grocery cart? But you cross it off, and there is something in our brains that goes, good job, me. Thanks, other me. Like, you did a really great job there. Oh, thank you. I'm really glad I did that. Like, there's definitely like a part of our psychology that really loves accomplishing tasks. And so that can build up your self-efficacy. And so we are going to be increasing client self-efficacy, and that can lead to greater exercise participation, right? By giving your clients tasks that are accomplishable. This is one of the reasons why we need to do thorough fitness assessments, right? I want to know how strong your upper body is so that I don't give you some crazy hard variation of a push-up that's impossible to perform, That's only going to lead to tearing down, right? What we want to do is we want to build our clients' efficacy up, right? Your self-confidence. And so we definitely know that like exercise has a really, really positive effect on our clients' self-efficacy. Now, there's also self-esteem, and this is an individual's feelings of self-worth. So again, these are the two ways that you see yourself in perception, right? You perceive yourself as effective and worthy or valuable, right? So it's an individual's feelings of self-worth. So examples of this are like, a lot of times senior clients will feel age-related like anxiety when they go into the gym. They're like, oh, I don't belong here. You know, that dude over there is lifting 500 pounds up over his head. I can't do that. I am not as valuable as him. I don't deserve to take up his time. All of what I just said is incredibly irrational, but these are all real feelings that you will see in the real, like when you get out there in the world, trust me. It happens in your senior clients. It happens sometimes in youth clients, although youth are usually just very confident. And it happens in weight loss clients as well. I think sometimes you can sometimes see people's like self-esteem or self-confidence. When you see people who often, they always let someone else get away with stuff and they never sort of take ownership of something. That's kind of an example of like low self-esteem, right? I definitely know again, usually when I'm like kind of achy or in pain or something, or if I'm just going through like a rough patch just in life in general, I notice that I apologize more often. Like I'm constantly like noticing like what's going on in my own behaviors and stuff. And one of the things I do is I apologize a lot. Like someone will run into me and I'll go, oh, sorry. It's like, no, they ran into me. Like, sometimes that shows like, again, when you're having like a rough time psychologically, like that can suppress your positive feelings and your feelings of self-worth, your self-value, right? And it's like, oh, well, I'm not valuable, so I'm sorry that I was born and am in the way. Like that's a incredibly, incredibly irrational thing to feel, but it's, again, a very real one that sometimes senior clients experience. So that's your self-esteem. Sometimes this is noted by body image. Sometimes like they start to see themselves as getting older, so then they feel less valuable. Sometimes it's related to just like how their body is performing. And a lot of times like in your traditional gym setting, sometimes they can be a little more uncomfortable, I think the most common version of this that I hear, like I'm trying to recreate the phrase that but I can't think of like a perfect example, but I've definitely had several senior clients who are just like, hey, we want to hire a trainer, but like we've just, we're up there in years. We're looking for somebody who can help us like feel better. I'm not really looking for like that macho, intense, over the top style of working out. And it's like, you don't have to put all of that extra stuff on it. I'm going to give you a workout that's good for you. It's great that they're communicating. And I would never actually tell them like, hey, you don't have to say any of that. I'm glad they're communicating with me. But you can hear it in like sort of the words they're choosing and the way they talk about it. They're like, we don't want any of them. That's clearly not us. It's like, you don't want a hard workout. No. You're going to get the workout that's like going to help you reach your goals. You're going to get a great workout designed and catered to you. Like, doesn't matter what somebody else's needs are. Your needs are your own, and so that's sort of part of self-esteem there. And so, again, these are very real emotions that you will often sort of come across when you're working with seniors or honestly, most populations. I think every client, no matter how confident they are sometimes, I think every client has like their hangups. I think of myself as a pretty confident person, but there's definitely times where like, something will happen and I'm just like, oh man, I go through just a hard psychological time. And so like, these are just very common things. This is one of the reasons why like everybody should have a trainer, like we're here to kind of help be in our client's corner to help those negative feelings go away. Yeah. Question.
Yes.
No. Oh, go ahead, Irene. Go ahead.
Okay. So Brett, like say I'm running and then I tell myself, okay, I can make it like positive self-talk. Would that fall under self-efficacy?
I would say self-esteem. Well, I don't know. It depends. It depends on how, like what type of positive self-talk. Is it positive self-talk like you got this, you can do this?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. That'd be like efficacy based. If it's like, oh, nice job. I'm so good at this. That'd be more like self-esteem.
Okay.
One's like seeing your worth and one's seeing like your performance.
Performance would be the esteem.
No, worth is the
Oh yeah. Right. I got it.
Yep. Robert, you had a question?
Not a question, but just like a little short story, I guess that could
Sure.
tie into what we're talking about right now. But you know, I had my trainer at LA Fitness, and you know, they block off a certain section for all the people getting trained. At my LA Fitness that I go to, like, it's a whole separate room, like closed doors and everything like that, which is what I really liked about that. Yeah. But anyways, to get to it, you know, I would go early in the mornings, and there would be kind of like the senior crowd there, and a lot of them would look at me like, I don't want to, I'm not trying to boast or brag about myself or anything like that, but you know, but I could tell that a lot of them were kind of looking towards me, or, oh, I kind of want to be like that guy in a way. And then I would just, you know, tell them back in response, like, hey, I just hope I make it to your age. And when I make it to your age, I just hope that I still have the motivation to even want to be coming to the gym, you know?
Yeah, totally. Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing, man. Like, yeah, I think that's like super, I love that kind of like motivation talk, you know? Because it makes people feel good. And that's, at the end of the day, like, kind of what we're doing, you know? If we boil all this down and we're just talking simply, we're trying to make people feel good.
Yeah. And it's not like, and I would explain to them, you know, it's not like I'm trying to show off or be better than anybody here, but we all have a trainer. We're all trying to work on something, you know? It's not just you guys are the older and I'm the younger generation, and that's how it is, you know? We're all trying to be better, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. This is why I love gyms. I love them and I miss them. I miss real gyms. All right. So kind of diving into emotional well-being, let's look at sort of some of the things that are sort of associated with like getting older, right? So there are like a lot of effectors of our emotional well-being, right? There's things that you know have positive and unfortunately negative effects on our emotional well-being, and some of those are just dramatic life changes, you know. Again, imagine like, you know, even like the loss of a loved one, that can be a huge dramatic life change, and that is something that we see, you know, commonly in our senior clients, right? And we also see feelings of loss that happen even from like retirement, like I just talked about a minute ago, right? You know, you sort of tie up your self-worth sometimes in your job, right? You sort of place your value in this thing that you went and did every day. You're like, I was so good at this, and now I don't do that anymore. It's like, I don't have anything. I don't have anything that I'm great at. And it's like, that's illogical and irrational and untrue. But it may feel that way, and I can understand how you would feel that way. So let's work to overcome that, you know? Again, don't tell someone the things I just said. That would be, I mean, if you're a tough lover, go for it. But you know, dramatic life changes definitely are something that we see. We can see it be the loss of a loved one or a friend, and then feelings of loss from retirement. And so that can lead to all kinds of like depression or anxiety. You know, this can lead to a lot of negative feelings. But what's great, it's kind of like we were saying yesterday, it's like as we get older, our heart changes, our lung changes, right? But, and it was all the positive effects of exercise. Well, habitual exercise has been shown to reduce stress, because you got to remember, like, stress is dictated both psychologically, like neurologically, and hormonally, right? That's sort of like how stress is sort of manifesting. This is why we spend all of our time bad-mouthing cortisol as trainers, right? We're always talking about like, we got to keep your cortisol levels low. We got to do this, right? And we got to like do all these things to keep your cortisol levels low, you know? But here's the thing, you know what's crazy? Exercise literally creates cortisol. Like, we spend all of our time talking about how we want to avoid cortisol, and yet the thing that we do causes more cortisol than anything. But again, remember, hormones, the other thing that's kind of unique about them is that they're kind of like, and I'm probably going to butcher this analogy, but this is the one that I've heard other people use, and so I'm going to try and do my best. Hormones are kind of like paint. Like if you have yellow and you mix it with blue, what do you get, guys?
Green.
Right. And now if you throw too much yellow in there, what do you need to do to get back to green?
Throw more blue.
Totally. Now you're left with more paint, and that's where this analogy breaks down. But that is kind of how hormones work, right? Like you have cortisol, which is a stress hormone, but you also have things like dopamine and serotonin, which are anti-stress hormones. So when you create stress, your body goes, oh man, I need to create anti-stress. And so then it starts to create all these positive hormones, and that balances you back out. And that's why exercise kind of leaves you feeling a little euphoric when you're done. Like when you're done exercising and you're walking away and you're like, I feel awesome. What a great workout that was today, you know? And you kind of like, you feel really positive afterwards. That's all of the stress reduction that comes from creating those anti-negative hormones. It's the same thing why we watch horror movies, you know. It's October right now and everybody's probably watching like little horror movies here and there. And you know, some people that just love watching horror movies, you know, like they're just super into it. And it's like, and they love to get scared. And then, you know, they go to Halloween Horror Nights. Or like, you know, you see it whenever you scare your friends, you're like, you jump out behind a door and they go, and it's like horrendous. And then afterwards they go, and everybody just laughs afterwards, right? That's your body going stress, anti-stress, and like relieving it afterwards. And so, you know, by creating this stressful thing, your body creates the anti-stressful thing afterwards, right? So we do know that habitual exercise has really positive effects on this. This, by the way, is one of the reasons why you do not want to skip your warm-ups or your cool downs. By warming up, you're triggering like the good kind of stress. Like you're sending a signal to your body. It's like, look, we're on a hunt right now, rather than look, we are being hunted right now. So that's like, you know, one of the reasons why warming up is so important. So you're telling your body like we're easing into stress, you know, rather than just going from nowhere into like, stress. And then cooling down is the same thing. We want to ease out of it. We're sending a signal to our body that it's over. And so our body can create anti-stress hormones and create all that positive endorphin stuff. Mood, we see improvements in mood, obviously. And I think that like that improvements in mood is totally related to stress, just like we were looking at. But it can also just be related to like those psychologically, like neurologically, you are, you know, having more confidence to accomplish certain tasks, you're feeling better. All of those things are going to lead to just generally improved mood. And then we're even going to see decreased negative psychological symptoms. And so when I talk about that, what I mean is like, you know, where somebody maybe flies off the handle, you lose your temper and you have a hard time getting it back, you know, in check. You're just like, God, I'm so mad. Okay, I'm over it. God, no, I'm not, you know, like you're still really upset. You know, exercising regularly decreases symptoms like that. We even see clients who have depression, right? Depression is not just somebody who is chronically sad. That is such a common misunderstanding of what depression is. Depression is a disease of the brain. It is literally a physical and chemical imbalance in the brain. Those dopamine receptors, they just don't bind the way that they're supposed to. And that's what antidepressants do. They literally make your brain better at binding to the stuff that the average brain does fairly well. And so those positive endorphins that make us feel good, you know, when you lose all of that, you'll hear people describe depression. They won't describe it as feeling sad. They'll describe it as feeling nothing. And that's worse, you know, because even like feeling sad is at least emotion, and humans, we thrive on emotion. And so like depression is a very, 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 very different thing. But exercising, because it's just dialing up that hormone hotline and just pumping those things through the body, it increases that sensitivity, similar to how it increases our sensitivity to the hormone insulin, right? In our body. And so we do see decreased negative psychological symptoms from exercise. Habitual exercise has really positive effects, not just on our senior clients, but on everybody. that is some of the stuff that we are talking about when we talk about increasing that psychosocial well-being, right? So now that we kind of understand, you know, if you think of everything I've said today as like a sales pitch, there's like a lesson on what it is, and then it was like, but exercise can do this, right? Well, now we got to talk about how to actually do it. Hopefully you've bought into the sales pitch. Now you're you know, you fell for my scheme. Now it's time to talk about how to actually do it. So step one, if we're creating like healthy lifestyle changes, right? What we want to do is we want to be able to develop rapport and trust with our clients. We want our clients to feel safe, comfortable, and we want them to trust us, right? That is absolutely huge. So talking about developing rapport, and by the way, this is a key vocabulary term. I would, just this one. This is a very key vocabulary term here. I would definitely get this word memorized. Remember, there's, you do have like, I think 10 or maybe 12 questions on your exam that are related to the sales chapter, you know, which is a very small chapter. And then it's also related to the psychological chapter, which is also a very small chapter. And so we have the behavior change and sales section. Let me see, actually. NASM exam blueprint. Pulling up that blueprint here.
Brad, you're talking about the depression. Does that mean the depression part of your boat is sad?
Yeah, right. Your muscles have a hard time gripping.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so you've got 12 questions related to client relations and behavior coaching. So that's your exercise psychology chapter. And then you've got professional development and responsibility is 10%. So you got 22 questions that are related to the sales and like talking about the psychology of working with your clients. And let me tell you, the word rapport shows up in both. People are not going to buy from you if they don't trust you, and your clients are not going to let you lead them down psychological coaching if they don't trust you. So this is one of those key vocabulary words that's in your regular textbook. So rapport is an individual's feelings of trust towards another. You want your clients to trust you, right? Do they feel safe, comfortable, and do they trust you, right? Make sure that you are conveying to your clients that you can help them reach their goals, and that you can help them, like you're trying to instill as much confidence in them as possible. Now, if we know that rapport is so important, how the heck do we do it? Well, here are 4 simple steps. This is broken down a little bit different than your regular textbook, but trust me, it's very helpful. You'll notice yourself doing this naturally when you work with clients. But step 1 is just to ask and listen. Ask your clients specifically what they want to achieve, what their worries are, and what obstacles they may be nervous to overcome. That is a part of like asking and listening. And when you're doing this, you want to make sure, and this is also from your regular textbook, you want to engage in active listening. So active listening, you are placing 100% of your attention on your client. You are not going, man, that sounds rough. Yeah, I can't imagine what that's like. Right, like terrible. When you are actively listening, you want to do a couple different things. It is active listening. There's another definition of this sometimes. I can't remember what class it's in, but it's also showing outward signs of attention to your client. You are conveying to them that you are listening to them. So making eye contact, that is part of active listening. So you should be looking at your client while they are talking to you, right? And then ask questions related to what they're saying. This is one of the best versions. This is like, I'll be honest, this is something that I have used when I'm trying to build rapport just with like a stranger or something. You know, like if I'm on like a first date or something. Ask questions related to what it is they're saying rather than, you know, let's say they're telling you a story or something like that, rather than going, yeah, That's crazy. You know, like, rather than any of that nonsense, ask them questions related to like what it is they're saying, or play off what it is they're saying and relate it to something else that you've experienced. Like, oh, so what you're saying is blah, 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 blah. Oh, I've experienced something similar when I blah, 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 right? That's a sign of active listening. That shows that you are, you know, not just listening, you are hearing your client. Speaking of relationships and stuff, I got totally schooled one time in a relationship where I was not active listening. And my girlfriend was like, she's like, I kind of feel like you're not listening. She was like giving me a hard time. She was like razzing me a little bit. And she was like, I kind of feel like you're not listening to me right now. And I was like, I heard you. I was like, you said da, 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 da. And I like listed it off, which is totally what you would do to your parents, right? Remember when your parents would be like, your mom would be like, hey, pay attention. You'd be like, I heard you. And you're like, what did I say? And you're like, you said do the dishes and walk the dog. You know? And she retorted back with the greatest return I've ever heard, which was like, yeah, no, she said, you heard me, but you didn't listen to me. And what she meant is like, yeah, it's like I heard words, but I wasn't like absorbing them. And I was like, you know what? You're right. And I'm wrong. So that is very much active listening, right? Engage in that active listening. And then try to avoid fidgeting as much as possible, and try to engage, you know, with your eye contact. Try to have open body language. This is not 100% part of fidgeting, but try to have open body language. Try to avoid this type of posture, hands in the pocket, hands behind your back. Try to just pay attention to your client and stay open. That is also going to make people feel more comfortable. There's a lot more body language still in our psychology than we give credit for, you know? You look at like how animals communicate. I mean, we have language, you know, like I can tell you how I'm feeling or how I feel you are paying attention to me. I can convey it with words, right? But at the end of the day, we're still like a biological animal. And there's a lot of like body language that's still sort of being picked up on by the back of our brains, you know? That cave person brain back there is like, why is that person's arms crossed? And you may not necessarily be consciously aware of it, but your brain's going, I feel like they're not listening to me, or they don't want to hear what I have to say, you know? So there is like some body language stuff there. So try to avoid fidgeting, try to maintain eye contact, and ask questions related to what it is that they are saying. And then one of the other ways that we can develop rapport in our clients, and this is definitely, I think, again, not particular to seniors, but definitely particular to anyone who is nervous about a gym environment. And so you want to address their barriers and concerns. A lot of these barriers and concerns are going to come up in conversation pretty quick, because it's sort of in the front of their brain. But like fear of injury is a huge one, especially with our seniors, right? Like they're like, hey, we want to exercise, but like, please keep us safe. And it's like, yeah, my job is to keep you safe. Of course I will, you know? Fear of intolerance, like fear of not belonging in the gym. Robert, like you were just saying, right? Sometimes people just feel like they don't belong, or they feel like everyone else is doing a better job than they're doing. That discomfort, right? Sometimes there can be like, just discomfort in health clubs in general. I think that this is like a combination actually of like the intolerance and injury sometimes. I've definitely had senior clients get nervous about going to certain sections of the gym because they're like, oh, that's where all the free weights are. You know, I don't want to get hit by a stray dumbbell, or I don't want to trip over something that somebody left on the floor. And I've seen how messy that gym floor gets. And if you guys find out like a counter argument to that one, let me know. Because that's one I've never been able to be like, yeah. Or that's why I've never been able to be like, no, it's totally safe. Because people do leave their freaking dumbbells laying all over the place. And then lack of time. This is a classic one. I think this is a classic, like, this is in your regular textbook as well, in the sales chapter. You will hear people, one of the most common objections that they will have is they'll say, oh, well, I don't have enough time to exercise, right? And we know that's not true. It's not so much that we have a lack of time to do things, it's that we have, we're not making time to do certain things a priority, you know? I totally had that with my roommate yesterday. So this is so funny. Here's a real conversation that literally happened less than 18 hours ago. My roommate came into my room. He has been watching that Netflix show, The Haunting of Bly Manor. And I was like, oh, I want to watch that. And he was like, well, I'm only 2 episodes in, catch up, and then we'll go through it together. And I was like, great. So I watched the first episode a couple nights ago. And he came into my room like right after class was over. And he was like, did you have a chance to watch the next one? And I was like, no, not yet. And then I started working on the upload. And then I like sat on my bed and relaxed for a little bit and kind of scrolled through a couple articles on my phone, which did not relax me because I decided to read politics. So then I got less relaxed. But then he came in like an hour and a half later, right? Which is definitely plenty of time. And he was like, did you have a chance to watch that episode? And I was like, no, I haven't had time yet. And he was like, okay. And then he left. And I was like, you know what? To be fair, I did have time. I didn't make it a priority. And he was like, okay, I'll take that answer. And it's like, but I'm going to in a minute. That is, when we all answer it, like, how many times have you said, oh, I don't have time to work out today? When in the reality is, we really just didn't make it a priority for the amount of time that we did have. And by the way, and for the record, like some people, it's okay to also have a legitimate lack of time. That is also still a thing. But many times that sort of lack of time thing is inaccurate, you know? Well, if you cut down an hour a day watching less TV, right, now suddenly you have time to be super active, you know? And then another step to building rapport is to praise your clients, continually praise their successes, like towards meeting their goals. You know, this is that positive reinforcement we've talked about plenty of times, right? We do know that, like, you know, being like, that was awesome, congrats, good work, you know, those compliments are really, really effective. Praising successes is definitely one of the ways to build rapport. This is one of the reasons Robert and Irene, you guys were both there in person the other day. And I talked about how, like, one of my favorite things to do is to do the overhead squat assessment. And then immediately, before I move on with the rest of the assessments, I'll go, okay, so what I saw was, let's say, tight calves, right? One of the reasons you're leaning too far forward is because your calves are really tight. So what I'll do, and I told you guys I will stretch out their calves. I'll also usually do a little bit of strengthening for their anterior tib. So I'll try to like turn the front of their shins on as well. So I'll do just really quickly, I'll take them over and foam roll the calves. Then I'll stand them up and I'll put them through one calf stretch for the gastrocnemius and one calf stretch for the soleus. Then I'll immediately lay them down and I'll just have them pull. I'll use my hand actually and have them pull against my hand and activate the front of that shin. That's their anterior tibialis. So they're doing that resisted dorsiflexion, right? And that's just a little bit of activation. Then I'll be like, great. So that took us what? 3.5, 4 minutes. Now let's get you back on your feet and have you do that squat again. And then it'll be like a night and day difference. And they're like, oh my God. And I'm like, you crushed it right now. That was awesome. All we had to do was turn those overactive muscles off a little bit and you just killed it. Your squat looks a million times better. That praise gives them confidence. It immediately puts the exercise session in a positive light, and it makes them feel like they are both effective and worthy, right? So really, really good positive feelings there. Next one we're going to see is also communicating the benefits. So we're going to help our clients recognize that the most powerful predictors of health, right? We're going to help our clients recognize the positive effects that they are experiencing. So communicating the benefits of like everything that you are doing and everything that they are doing, you know, that's sort of like staying the course. That's what keeps you on task when it comes to exercising, right? Like it's sometimes easy when you're in the middle of like a routine. I do this a lot. I definitely know this. I recognize this in myself a lot. It's sometimes easy to forget why you're doing something because you might get excited by something else, which is my problem. Or maybe you just simply lose sight of your end goal. Or maybe you're just, you know, the amount of difficulty that it feels like it's outweighing the benefits, right? So any of those things can kind of lead to feelings of like wanting to give up, right? But by helping them recognize that's like, hey, your squat's looking much better, that's going to take that stress off your knees, right? Or saying like, hey, your posture looks a lot better here. That's going to take that pressure off your shoulder. That might make this feel a little bit better. Hey, you're developing your endurance. Hey, those side stitches are going to go away when you start doing your cardio. Like helping your client realize that like the reason you are doing what you are doing is having positive, tangible effects is a great way to develop rapport and trust in your client, because they're going to go, you know what? You're right. That mile was a lot easier than it was 4 weeks ago. I do feel these positive effects of exercise. This is making a big difference in my life. So we can really communicate those positive effects, and that helps our clients recognize those. So that's some of the best ways to get your clients excited about stuff. Do you guys have any questions about rapport building, rapport building? Cool. All right. I was check for the thumbs up. All right. So this is also, again, showing up from our youth class. By the way, this is just a trivia. This has nothing to do with class. But if you wonder why like this psychosocial chapter looks so similar to the youth one from last module, check it. Most of the NASM CEUs, most of those NASM CEU classes that they sell on their website, right? They are sold as worth 2.0 CEUs together. But if you look, come on. Wait, those are bundles. No. Yeah, just go to continue education. What is going on? I'm just on the wrong page. This was supposed to be a quick trip. Just take me to the YFS. No. Yeah, here we go. So see how this one's only $200? It's a little bit cheaper, right? This is the youth exercise specialist. This is the youth class, and then there's the senior class. It's only worth 1.0. These used to be sold as a bundle. Then they started breaking them up, but you'll notice psychological considerations for youth sounds pretty similar to the psychosocial considerations of aging. So these used to be really, 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 really similar, textbooks. They kind of followed the same format. So anyway, there's your fun factoid, your NASM factoid for the day. I gotta have different categories because I do way too many weird sidetrack facts. So let's look at our 5-step process for greater achievement right here. So this is sort of the 5 things that kind of help us help our clients achieve their goals, right? So one of these is going to be vision, helping your clients clarify really what it is that they want, right? Like what is their vision for a successful gym experience? Is it going to be, jumping higher? Is it going to be running faster? Or is it going to be just feeling better, right? Sometimes I like the term feeling better. I think it's a worthy goal, but I do not think it's very specific. So a lot of times I will ask my clients a lot of questions, be like, so what do you mean by feel better? Your knees, emotionally? Are you coming back from an injury or an illness? Like, what do you mean? What is it exactly that, like, how do you know when it, like, if I were to ask you, like, how do you know when you feel better, right? So that's like part of like clarifying your vision with your clients. And this is just something you want to continuously do with your clients. Keep checking in with them, because every now and then, I've definitely seen this. My clients' goals will just change. Like what motivates them will just disappear, and I won't know about it because we're still working towards this other goal. And I'll be talking about it, and they're like, yeah. And then like I start to notice that like when I'm like, we're getting towards your goal, and they just seem less enthusiastic about it, and I'm like, hey, it kind of seems like you don't care about this as much anymore. Like, are we losing motivation on the goal? Do you feel like you're not achieving your goal fast enough? Like, what's going on? It's like, I don't know. I just think that like I'm much more motivated by something else now. Cool. All right, great. So that's okay, right? Like, let's clarify what you mean. Like, what is it that you really, really do want? So visualize your broader goals as barriers that can be broken, right? So like helping them go, okay, well, what's keeping you from feeling, super, super positive about things? Like, what is it right now that you're feeling? Like, why don't you feel like you are awesome at this already, you know? And so that can be like the vision. It helps you get a clear understanding, and helps them get a clearer understanding of what they mean, you know? This is like, if you ever look up, if you want to read about a fun thing, it's called rational emotive therapy. And it's literally a form of therapy that just teaches, part of like what a psychologist will do is they literally teach their client how to speak a little bit better. They're like, you need to use your words. Like, oh, I'm just mad all the time. Mad's not very descriptive. What do you mean? You're frustrated with what? You know, you got to talk a little bit more. So vision's really helpful. It helps you get a really clear understanding of things. And then strategy is another one. Strategy is great because this is going to turn these goals, these wants, these needs into actionable things, right? This is gonna turn it into stuff that we can actually, you know, take control of and do. And so strategy turns lofty ambitions into consistent actions, right? Like if I have the goal of, you know, like my goal is to, you know, purchase an investment property next year, like by June, right? Like that's my goal, right? In order to do that, I needed to break down like how much money I need to save in that amount of time. And then I had to break that further down into like how much money I need to save every month. And in order to break that down, I had to come up with a strategy for how to reduce my spending in a couple of different ways. Luckily, thanks to the freaking pandemic, reducing spending has been pretty easy because I can't leave the house. He said calmly. So that is part of like strategy, right? Help your client turn lofty ambitions into strategies, right? Into goals. And so specific strategies or goals are going to be always much more effective than general ones, right? And it's like, how are we going to reach this weight loss goal? I'm going to work out. Not specific enough. What do you mean? You're going to strength train 3 days a week and do cardio twice per week? Or you're going to strength train for an hour every day? What do you mean? What do you mean you're going to work out more, right? Make this clear for me. And then develop a combination of short-term and long-term goals. Like why isn't let's say our short-term goal is to check in to the gym at least 20 times this month. If you break down like Monday through Friday in 4 weeks, right? That's 20 gym sessions. Now, let's say you miss a Wednesday. Well, you can always make it up on a Saturday, right? Our short-term goal, I want to see your name on the check-in log at least 20 times by October 30th, right? Say it was October 1st. So there, October 31st. 30 days. So there, like that's our strategy, right? That's maybe there's a good short-term goal. And then like a long-term goal is like something that's set in 6 months or a year. And so like by having a combination of those two things, that's going to give you a strategy for how to overcome those goals. Belief, helping your clients actually believe in their success. This is developing my favorite thing in the world to talk about, which is developing a client's internal locus of control. So an internal locus of control, right, is the belief that you are the motivating factor. You have control over the things in your life. So you're going to see people who are very externally focused, and you're going to have people who are very internally focused. All of us are a blend. All of us are a combination. But like an external locus of control is, you know, when you're talking to someone and they're like, oh, all this bad stuff always happens to me. I always pick the law. Like, actually, here's a good example. Robert, Irene, quiz for you. Do you ever feel like you always pick the slow line at the grocery aisle? Like, you know what I mean by that? Like, you look at the line and then like you get in line and all of a sudden your line is just moving slower than them. Or like when you're driving, you're in the slow lane. Do you feel like you're always in the slow lane and traffic wise? Question for you guys.
Occasionally, but then I try to make the most of it. I'm like, you know, this just gives me more time to listen to this podcast.
That's a very positive look. I like that. So that's sort of the difference between like an external locus and an internal locus. Like if you're the type of person that, and we all know this type of person, right? Who's like, they're always like, bad stuff always happens to me. Or like they believe a lot in like luck. They're like, oh, I'm just not very lucky. Or like that's an external, like that's like the belief that there's all these external forces in the world that are like affecting your life. And it's like, that's not always the most accurate control, right? Or I'm sorry, not the most accurate representation. No, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of things out of your control, you know, like for sure. But like that is, if you have an internal locus, it's the belief that you are in control of your life and you are like, you can have like you can change the strategy, right? And it's like, all right, I am in the slow lane, but I can always change lanes, right? And then I can get to work on time. So like, this is one of those things, you know, when I've got, this is sort of a hard conversation sometimes, but I cannot tell you how many times this happened to me in both training sessions, and then it is totally what led to me saying the same exact thing when I became a teacher. But you know, I've had clients walk into the gym like 5 minutes late. And they walk in and they're carrying like, you know, a Starbucks with them. And they go, sorry, I'm late. I got here as fast as I could. And I'm like, as fast as you could while also stopping at Starbucks is what you mean. Like, traffic was really bad. Traffic doesn't have anything to do with taking 10 minutes at a Starbucks drive-thru, you know? Like, and I've had the same thing with students, right? Students show up like, sorry, I'm late. You know, traffic was really bad. It's like, yeah, but you've got some Dunkin' Donuts in your hand. So that's kind of the difference between like an external locus and an internal locus. It's like, look, I'm not saying you're a bad person. Like, and sometimes when you push back on somebody, they get really defensive on stuff like this, right? And you know, this conversation can be kind of uncomfortable if you recognize this in yourself. I know that I do this sometimes. I'll make a lot of excuses for certain things. I think everybody does it. So there's no judgment here. But it feels sometimes like you're being judged. And it's like, well, you know, and then like suddenly you like turn around. It's like, well, you're being a little harsh, don't you think? Like I had to get something to drink. And it's like, yeah, okay, well then why didn't you leave 10 minutes earlier? Yeah, like, so that's the difference between like internal and external locus of control, right? An external locus is where sometimes you just are like, well, my genetics are at fault here, or traffic was really bad, or, you know, my boss is always ragging on me. When in fact, like, it's like, hey, well, let's see if we can take an internal belief that you have a little more control. If your boss is always scheduling you at a time that's making it hard for you to get to your training sessions on time, have you ever actually asked your boss if it's possible for you to come in a half hour earlier and leave a half hour earlier? Maybe they're going to say no, but you're never going to know unless you ask, right? That's that internal locus. And you'll see like that internal locus is really huge. Robert, you'll recognize this, by the way. Do you remember this from, this is in Smarter, Better, Faster. They talk about that locus of control. He only talks about it really briefly, but it is, whoops, I almost totally ate it right there.
Brad, it's also sort of like feeling like the victim, you know, and trying to find excuses, and that would be all external, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And don't get me wrong, like there are, like, excuses are a totally valid thing. Like, I'm not saying external locus of control is like a very bad thing to have, by the way. That's not what I'm saying. Because don't get me wrong, there's plenty of things outside of our control. You know what I mean? Like, if you do leave the same time every day for work, and then all of a sudden there's a wreck 5 minutes, 5 feet in front of you, and you literally can't get around it. Yeah, like that's, that's out of your control. I can't do anything about that.
But that reminds me of a saying by Wayne Dyer. Like if you change the way you look at things, the things will change, or something.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty much all within your control. It's how you perceive it, right?
Yeah. And this is why, like, this is where sometimes I get into arguments with people. And I don't want to spark anybody or trigger anybody when I say this. But like sometimes, like, I really love the power of positive thinking. You hear people talk about like The Secret and stuff like that, and like manifesting what they want, and they think of like these positive things. I actually really love all of that, and I'm a huge fan of it. I don't personally believe that there's anything mystical happening at all. Like, I don't think that like my positive thoughts are sending brain waves out, which are bringing the things that I want towards me. But I do firmly believe that by being positive, I am more likely to create positive changes in my own life, which will have a positive effect, things that I don't necessarily notice. And that's like where you start like, sort of observing your own like personal biases and stuff. This is where freaking like stereotypes come from, by the way. This is the same part of our psychology. This locus of control stuff and like these biases, this is all part of the same conversation. When you hear that person who's like, oh, all old people are bad drivers, and then like they're driving and a young person like cuts them off, they'll like see it's like, oh God, I got cut off. Oh. And then like they don't pay any attention to the driver. They're like, screw you. And they don't pay attention to like their demographic. Then all of a sudden like an old person does the same thing. And they're like, see, all old. And that's called the confirmation bias. It's where you already have a bias. And then when something happens, it confirms it makes it like stronger and stronger and reinforces it. This is where like a lot of stereotypes come from. And that's where people will use that phrase, which is, I guess, technically true, but at the same time, people use it in a really negative way that drives me crazy. Well, they'll go, well, stereotypes are stereotypes for a reason. And it's like, ugh. You could literally say that about anything. Everything is something for a reason. Can you tell I had this argument used on me recently? So anyway, that's your belief. Help your clients believe that they are in control of their actions. They are in control of like developing this healthy lifestyle. Huge part of like helping your clients achieve more. And then we have persistence. Persistence is huge here as well. And this is the science of helping others learn how to move forward and rebound from setbacks. Like we just said like a second ago, setbacks are going to happen, right? We just said this just like 10 seconds ago. We were talking about how like things will happen negatively. There's no avoiding it. We all live in there's a crazy chaotic world. But learning how to, turn that setback into something positive and like go forward is really helpful. I've had clients ask me a few times, like, because I was like an AM trainer. I was a morning trainer, primarily for most of my career. I really like 6 a.m. shifts. And sometimes you'll just have clients who are just like, man, I stayed up all night last night and I just didn't get enough sleep. And like, I just couldn't get up and do my, I know I was supposed to go to the gym yesterday, and I just couldn't make it because I was just totally exhausted. Like, what should I do on those days? Should I just power it out and go to the gym anyways on like 4 hours sleep, or should I, like what's more important, good sleep or a good workout? And I'll tell my clients like, well, you got to remember, like if you go work out without enough sleep, you're going to be creating like stress with a side of more stress. So you know what? Get some more sleep. Chances are by sleeping in, you're going to have more motivation and you're going to be more energized, and maybe you can get an evening session workout in that day. Or by giving yourself a little bit of like that forgiveness, you can likely try to work out later on that afternoon, or I'm sorry, later on that week, right? Maybe you can get it in on the weekend. Just keep in mind, it's like something that's now on your to-do list. And that's usually my advice. And that way, like they learn how to come back from that setback rather than seeing something as a failure, they're seeing it as a setback, right? That's the difference between like lapsing and relapsing, right? Like lapsing is a temporary misstep. Relapsing is falling backwards into old habits, right? So encourage your clients to turn exercise, it into a habit, into a routine, right? This is why I always encourage people, you really do want to try to work out at the same time every single day. Create a routine out of it. Our brain loves routine, guys. It loves it. And so turn that into like exercising every day. Reward your successes. Like when you do something awesome, like take a moment to give yourself a little brain high five, that's also going to be huge. Facilitating networks. Creating a social group is also really helpful for persistence. This is something you as a trainer can do with your clients. I used to connect my clients together. And I didn't even do this on purpose, actually. I did this because my clients did it on their own, and I noticed that motivated them. So I used to have this kind of go-to warm-up that was like a dynamic warm-up. I had so many people who just hated doing like 5 minutes on the treadmill. So I came up with this fun little like body weight dynamic stretch circuit that people would do after they were done with their stretches. So my clients would always do their foam rolling, and then they would do the little cardio warm up, and then their session would start with me. And it was like the stuff I've done with you guys in the park, where it'd be like high knees, walking lunges, bucket, and it was just enough to get their heart rate flowing, but it wasn't enough to like, get them totally out of breath. But it was the same kind of routine and the same sequence with like most of my clients. And so they started like recognizing each other in the gym. It's like, are you one of Brad's clients? I'm like, yeah, I totally am. And then like they start connecting with each other. And then, they would bring it up in their session. They'd be like, hey, I met your client Peggy. And I was like, oh, you met Peggy. Like, how'd you know she was my client? I was like, well, she was doing the warm-up. And I was like, oh. And it kept them motivated. And they would say hi to each other. And they got to know each other. And that little social group, sort of kept them motivated. And so I would totally use that to my advantage during my session. I'd be like, Peggy crushed it today when we were doing this type of exercise. And I'm like, oh, really? Well, I want you to tell Peggy that I'm going to kill her, and then they do 5 more reps or something. So that can always be really helpful. People are motivated by other people. And so we really like social groups. And then vary up your routine. That will also help with your persistence. Use the OPT model to your advantage. NASM says you want to change everything up every 4 to 6 weeks, which is great. Me personally, I really do just like every 4 weeks. I like to do it for a month. I like to go from like, January 1st, or October 1st to October 31st. That's like a cycle for me. And then I change it up next month. I like to have like a shtick or a routine, a specific set up sort of like goal for the month. And it's kind of fun. It's something that kind of, again, keeps you motivated. Learning, helping your clients, learn in the right phase, right? And this is helping your clients. This is one of the best ways to make sure that your clients are achieving a lot, is make sure that you are focusing on learning, the science of helping them make course correction. So you're going to help encourage your clients to use their own self-monitoring. This is why we really like food journaling. We put mirrors in gyms. We take photos before and after of our clients. All of those things are examples of like monitoring, right? But using things like food journals that your clients are doing themselves, that's an example of like, or like workout logs that they're filling in themselves. That's self-monitoring. And so that allows them to kind of see themselves doing it and notice that they're making progress towards their goals or seeing what their setbacks are. So help your clients clarify what they really want, turn what they want into actions, help them believe that they can achieve what they want, help them overcome any setbacks towards what they want, and help them learn and make course corrections towards what it is that they are trying to achieve. So summarizing everything up, our psychosocial changes obviously have a big effect on us, both anatomically and psychologically, and socially. And we know that we want to understand like all of those factors in order to, we need to know about them in order to understand like how our brain works, in order to understand what to do to have positive effects on our brain. And part of that is if you're trying to communicate with your clients, you definitely want to build as much rapport and communicate with your clients as possible in order to, at the end of the day, do the main big thing that we are trying to do, which is improve that overall quality of life. So that is that. Do you guys have any questions today?
No, I really enjoyed the session, Brad. Thank you.
Yeah, I like the psychology ones. They always feel like, motivational speaking.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you a personal question though about like to steps for achievement in a department with your reading.
Yeah, what about it?
Do you set a time that you read on a daily basis? What
Totally.
you do?
Yep. Yeah.
How do you do?
There's 2 ways that I do it. Usually I read before I go to bed, which is not the best way. I know a lot of people are not a big fan of that. But I actually try to read not in my bed. I do try to read before I go to bed, but I try not to read in my bed because like
you fall asleep.
Yeah, well, I also want my bed to be for sleeping. That is like, sometimes like I don't watch TV in bed. That's a bad idea. Don't read in bed. That's a bad idea. Bed is for, going to bed. So I try to like keep that clear in my brain. So I have like a little reading chair over on that side of the room, and it's like my little reading corner. And I do a couple other weird things that like kind of help me like get ready for like bedtime. So like that's part of it. I actually throw a sweater on at night because it kind of raises my body temperature and gets me like sleepy. But yeah, so that's I'm kind of straying to like sleeping instead of like reading. But yeah, I try to do that. If I don't do that, like if I know I'm not going to like tonight, like we're doing Ruby movie night tonight, then I'll try to get it in like the afternoon. You probably between like the morning and evening sessions today. But it's really only about like 30 to 45 minutes. I don't do like big long reading sessions that often. Keep it pretty short, actually.
Cool. Thanks for sharing, because I know you have so much knowledge in you. And like, I love the little fun facts that you bring up on some things that we talk about. And I was like, I know you read, you have a good habit of reading. So I just wanted to pick your brain.
It has been less books lately and more news.
Oh, I see.
As of late, just because of the way the world is right now. But yeah, I mean, that's always a good idea. I know a lot of people like they're a big fan of like reading in the morning. You'll hear a lot of like super successful people. And this is the one thing that I do in the morning is I start my journal in the morning, which is not really like a real journal. It's really just like a task journal. And so when I'm having like my coffee and my morning breakfast, I write down what I'm going to do. Then I go hit the gym. And then I don't shower.
You know what?
I don't shower, and then I get on the morning call. And then I shower while the video is downloading. So there's a weird insight. And then in the afternoon, then I do all like my morning up calls. Then I got like at the afternoon time where usually it's like a time for chores or I'll play sports with my roommates and stuff. And then the evening, I'll do the evening call and sort of wind down and do a little bit of reading and watch a movie or whatever it is, play board games, and then hit the hay around 10. So that's sort of a normal schedule.
I really, the chair, you have a reading chair.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I always thought that those were like for looks. When you see in big houses, like when you see like the chair with the books around it.
Yeah, me too. I also thought that until I got one really just to make my room look nice and was like, oh, this is why.
In that mode, that reading mode.
It really does, yeah. Again, our brains love routine, right? So it kind of starts to trigger, puts your brain in the right mindset.
That's so cool. I never thought of that because I don't have a set time where I do the reading, and it's like you just made some really good pointers to get down.
I was a big fan of remember how normally you'll see me standing a lot, but I've been sitting in the last like couple of weeks. I love my standing desk, but the problem with it is that it takes up a huge part of the desk. And so like I do my morning journaling just kind of everywhere. But I started doing it at my desk and noticed that I was being a lot more consistent about my task journals. And I was like, oh, that's where because that's like a productivity work thing. And I do all my productive stuff at my desk. And so I was like, man, so I actually I got rid of the standing desk sitting under my bed now. And I'm trying it for a few weeks, and I've been much more consistent about doing my morning journaling.
That's awesome.
Your brain is contextual,
Yeah, just having that basic foundation solid, and then building from there. I'm going to totally take you up on that chair. Yeah.
What I'm actually, speaking of routines, this is a weird one. You guys want to hear the weirdest thing that I do that like forces me to routine?
Yes.
I'm actually not able to do this anymore because I moved into this new place and we've got these LED lights, but it's actually open on the opposite thing here because I was looking at it this morning. I'm trying to find these. I used to have these smart light bulbs in my old home. And, you know, you could still turn the light switch on and off when you wanted to, but it was connected to an app which had a timer on it, and it would turn the lights off. They would start to get dimmer and dimmer and dimmer at like certain times during the day. And then they would turn off at a certain time, and they would turn back on in the morning. And it simulated like a sunrise. So like at like 5:30 in the morning, when the sun's not actually up, my lights would slowly get brighter and brighter, and that would wake me up. And man, I've never woken up more energized. Then I moved into this new house, and I don't have those light bulbs anymore because it's like a different type of socket. So I'm trying to find these special LEDs that will let me do that.
What's your window face? You got the nice bright sun that comes in.
I know, but the sun's not up at 5:30.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, you should look into that sign. That's actually a really fun thing. They're like smart light bulbs that are controlled with an app. I loved those things with my heart and soul, and I'm so sad that I don't have them here anymore. That was one of my most favorite things I've ever done.
It's easy because you just set it on a timer, and then it just gets you into. Oh.
Yep, you just click it, and it's like Monday through Friday, 5:20ish. They start turning on, and they get a little bit brighter, and then they're fully on by 5:30. And you just wake up, and like I'd wake up like 1 minute before my alarm every day, and just get right out of bed.
maybe there's something you can do with the sound on your phone in place of the light bulb.
Well, I did find some light bulbs. They're just very expensive. So.
Oh, I see. No, but would it help in the same way with the sound if you were to have, like that fading out sound?
Yeah, I know some people do stuff like that. They listen to like calming, like rain and stuff.
Yeah, but like the whole effect, the same effect as a light, but the sound getting louder and yeah.
Yeah.
Cool tips.
Love it. All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna kick you out of here, and I'll see you tomorrow. Homework 1's going up in a little bit.
All right, sounds good. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
All right, see you guys.